a good understanding that one, like LaunchCode can prepare you for more than just like programming jobs, but also two, like what is a Scrum Master? What is a product owner? What do these careers look like? So that you guys can feel pretty comfortable if you are going to go to a conversation about it. Everybody feel good about that? See that? Let's see the thumbs. Thumbs. All right. All right. So, I kind of said two jobs that we're going to be talking a lot about tonight: Scrum Master and Product Owner. And if you guys are like not familiar with Agile, a lot of companies are going through Agile transformations, and you're going to see these like whatever your career. If you're working in technology, you're going to see these jobs a lot. Cool. So, and a lot of people don't know, like, you think, like, oh, all the money's in development. I mean, there's some truth to that, but there's also, like, a lot of great roles to support the developers, and Scrum Masters and Product Owners are right around that, in that general area. And both of these are, pretty high-paying jobs, a couple years experience, it's a median salary between $80,000 to $90,000, and the growth in these roles is growing faster than programmers. So, why would you want to be a Scrum Master or a Product Owner? A couple of reasons here. So, first off is like, you still get to use all those technical skills that you learned in LaunchCode. Like, so all that programming, not wasted. But you also get to communicate with people more, right? So you're going to be working between the dev team and business a lot. And then the other thing is, especially if you're a product owner, you're going to learn a lot about business strategy. So if you find yourself as somebody that's like, you like programming, but you like the problem solving maybe more than you like the implementation, Scrum Master and Product Owner roles could be really good for you. All right, and so here's the thing is, if we want to keep growing St. Louis, we can't just focus on developers. We need to think about the entire software development lifecycle, and that includes Scrum Masters and Product Owners here. So what I've done with this slide is I've highlighted all the things that like a Product Owner or a Scrum Master might do. Right, so when we're going to build software, we need to go figure out what the customer wants, and then we need to like build a roadmap to do that, and then figure out what the MVP is, right? And only at that point do the developers really jump in, right? And then again, we need to review what we've done, and then like go back through this. So like developers are super important, but this like one step in a bigger project. And so if you're interested in the whole life cycle, again, like Scrum Master, Product Owner. Super interesting. All right. So another thing, why are you all here today? Job opportunity. So the opportunity we have, and what you've all been, I believe, emailed about, is MasterCard Scrum Master. And the way that this works is that it'll be a 180-day apprenticeship, and you'll be working closely with people from MasterCard, mentors there. And the interesting thing is this will actually be the biggest targeted training class we've ever done as well. Even though there's like only 10 people from LaunchCode, there's also going to be 10 people from MasterCard, which is really cool because you'll be learning alongside people that have been at MasterCard for 10 to 15 years, and they're sort of learning more about Agile because they've been more waterfall approach. So they'll be able to teach you a lot about how to interact with people at MasterCard. A great learning opportunity. And like I said, it's a great foot in the door at an occupation that is growing pretty quickly, but also can be very satisfying. All right. So at that point, do you guys anybody have questions before we move on?
What's the difference between a Scrum Master and a Product Owner and like a Project Manager?
All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about all that a lot. That's a really good question. And I think they'll kind of flesh this out. Is that Product Owner is kind of I think of it as a pretty Scrum Master specific or Scrum specific role, but they're generally more like the leader, and I'll let both of you talk about the leader of the product, right? So they're not just handling a project and then going on to something else. Right? Let's say we're building tech jobs, like an application for LaunchCode, right? They're going to work that application the whole from the beginning to end. Right? They're not just doing one small project. Does that make a difference? Does that make sense here?
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas a project manager might switch between a lot of different projects.
So if you're a product owner or a Scrum Master, you're still switching projects, right? You'll work on one and then go to something else, or you're always going to be working on the same application with the same team. And
So we can get into this more,
Okay.
Mike, but traditional management structures would be you have a team manager who manages the team, the people, the direction for whatever they're working on, the project, all of the things. Agile environments break that up into several different responsibility categories. So Scrum Masters handle the day-to-day delivery, product owners handle the vision and strategy for that product itself. Not the people, but like if you have the Facebook mobile app, if you're the product owner for that, you're gonna figure out what features you want next for that. You're gonna say, I want the ability to upload selfies and get reactions to it, or I want it to be working on all different platforms. That's the kind of thing that a product owner would decide, and then help the team through that implementation. But you stay attached to that that mobile application in this case.
Yeah, so obviously every organization does it differently, but in our organization, like, or most of the practices you see is that the TPOs, technical product owners or product owners, they don't really, they're not like a manager of the team, because the team is self-organized. The team decides how they're going to work on this product. The PO does not have authority to say, this is how it needs to be done. So, is that
yeah, that's
clarify
good
a bit?
information. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I'm going to introduce you real quick.
Go ahead, yeah.
So, before we get started, I want to introduce you guys to Jan. Jan is actually a TPO apprentice at Express Scripts. So, if you have questions about not just TPO, but also about what is it like to jump into one of these roles at a major company, she's definitely the perfect person to ask those questions.
Great.
All right. Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys. This is my name with a very long last name and really big font. So, my name is Yuan, and I went through LaunchCode 101, not 101, sorry. 101. I'm not sure what class you guys are in.
I think quite a few people actually went through LC 101 as well.
Yeah. So I learned programming, and before that I had a little programming background. I always liked technology. I always enjoyed working with the engineers and how straightforward they are, and how not emotionally burdening it is to interact with them. So when there's this opportunity, I also had business background. So I thought to myself, hey, I should give this a shot. So what is a product owner? So the product owner is not the manager of the team. The product owner is the visionary of the product. For example, if we're talking about, Ryan said tech jobs, right? So if I'm the product owner for this product, in my mind, I'm imagining this beautiful product with seamless user interface, and everyone just loves coming to this and looks kind of like this, but I try not to solution. So I translate that vision. So where I get this vision, I have to talk to the business. This is the business side that I interact with. Business, we have BPOs, they're business product owners. They kind of look at the opportunities that the organization has, where we can save money, and then we come up with products for that. So I translate that vision into like a wish list. And now this is just a wish list. There could be many things in it. And then against that wish list, I write user stories to make that into smaller, achievable chunks. And then I come back and I work with my engineering team and business to make that happen, to release it. In an agile world, that happens iteratively. So we release often and release early. So the yellow, I guess they're all kind of green, huh? So the little green guy in the middle, that says PO on it. So think of that as a product owner, and then these guys are engineers, and these are the backlog. So when I talk to business stakeholders up there, they're kind of up there because they're often on the higher floor, actually. So I talk to them, and they tell me what they want, and different things they want have different values attached to it. And as you can see, just because something is bigger doesn't mean it's more valuable. Just because something is big doesn't mean it's worth building. So I have to think about what I want with this product from their requirements. They're going to want many things. They're going to want, I don't know, it's like having a kid, right? Your kid would want everything from you, but you can only deliver so much. So you have to learn to say no and say, I can't do that. And then you take the ones you can and translate that into the backlog. Now you have to work with your engineering team, because if your engineering team can only work 4 to 6 stories, or just to imagine like if your engineering team can make 4 to 6 chunks of this thing, you can't feed them more. If you feed them more, they get very stressed out. And in my experience, engineers often are very nice people, and they always try to say yes. So you work with that, but you also at the same time, you have pressure from the stakeholders. They're going to say, well, you're having your engineers work 4 to 6 things. I want 10 things. So I'm not happy now. So you have to negotiate with your stakeholders, figure out which ones are more worth working on. Oh, Gabe, hey Gabe. Hey. And yeah, so you have your dev team, and this is where the whip limit comes in, right? This is how, and the most amount of this chunk of thing they can do. And then you have to deliver iteratively, small chunks. So your stakeholders want to see progress. That's how it's different from waterfall. In the past, waterfall is your stakeholders say, hi, I want this big thing. And then you have like a design phase. You design everything out with this product. And then you release a big chunk at once. And in the end, they say, this is not what I wanted. So a product owner.
Let's see if does anybody have questions?
Oh yeah, sorry, questions?
This is like a lot of information.
What does WIP stand for?
Work in progress.
So like, people feel pretty comfortable with the idea of a product backlog and user stories. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
What is the difference between product backlog and user stories?
So the backlog is the wish list, right? So we use Jira. So in the backlog, we have epics. Epic is like a big collection. It's like a big idea, right? See, if I want a product that makes people able to search for jobs, that's like a big idea. And then you break that down into little stories. Say, one story is, I want a search bar. The other story is, I want a save button that can save things. And maybe that is too big, then you need to break that down even. So backlog has, the top of the backlog has stories that the developers are going to work on, like right now. So you have to really figure out the weeds in that. At the bottom of the backlog, kind of like what you want in the future. Maybe you work on it, maybe you won't. Does that make sense?
So backlog is generally kind of more general, and user stories are more specific. Is that kind of
Yeah, and backlog is filled with user stories.
Okay.
But you don't wanna make every, so user story, it can be very specific user story. It can be very, like not very filled out user story. You don't want every single user story in your backlog super figured out, because then that's waterfall, right? So who knows what you will work on 6 months from now. Maybe the market changes so fast you don't even want that anymore. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a part of the responsibility for a product owner or a Scrum Master, is that the cost of the product, like in the timeline, is that a part of their responsibility too?
So different organizations do this differently. For technical product owners, it is and it isn't. Normally, your business in ESI, our BPOs, our business product owners, take on this responsibility because it's a lot of responsibility. So they figure out the cost and the benefit associated with everything. And for your engineering, you also have engineering managers. They manage a bunch of engineering teams. They don't tell them what to do, but they manage the cost and everything. Then you have departments, they have their own budget, but you should know, because all that goes into the product. All that is part of the cost, but you should know. You don't need to personally figure the things out, but you need to know. Yeah.
Just a vocabulary thing, I guess. I'm used to working with business analysts.
Mm-hmm.
So as a product owner and the business product owners, kind of like business analysts, and then the product owner is like a lead business analyst. You're liaising with the users to find out what you need to do backlog to the user stories.
Okay, so the BA, the business analyst, in this case, would kind of translate into our organization's BPO, you think?
They would probably work with them to understand requirements and break them down.
Yeah.
Or do any of the technical deep dives
Yeah,
before it's handed to the engineering team.
yeah,
I think a lot of companies have, like, so if they just have a product owner, they still have business analysts. They're kind of
Yeah.
different in that the product owner, big thing is like, they're like the CEO of the product. Right? They make big decisions, and the business analyst is like,
oh, hey, boss.
oh yeah, I wanted you to pass it
Sorry.
to him instead of passing it to you.
Oh, okay.
So like, yeah, they're the CEO of the product, right? So they make big decisions. Business analyst is just like analyzing things.
A CEO that gets yelled at all the time because,
Yeah, no, I think that's actually like being a real CEO.
yeah, that's true. So, any more questions? Okay, go ahead.
So at this stage, there's no Scrum Master, or could it be a PO and
The
Scrum Master?
Scrum Master is the invisible hand behind everything.
Okay.
The Scrum Master, he's going to, after this, he can explain to you. Yeah.
Most teams will have a PO and a Scrum Master, hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully, yeah. Did you have a question?
How do you recommend people get a sense of how long it takes to do things to manage those expectations with the stakeholders if you're new to it?
That's a good question, right?
That depends on the product. That depends. You have to collaborate with. Okay, so there's such thing called user story mapping session. Don't get caught up on the terms. What it is I have this product. I have a rough idea how long it will take. You also have to work with your boss to see, my boss. I work with him to see how much we can plan. But there's such thing as user story mapping session where you bring the engineer, like engineer lead, you, and the business side. You map out different epics, which is different small deliverables, and then you can get an idea from there.
That's a good place where the Scrum Master comes in too. User stories, the best way to do it is really from history with the team. As you break stuff down into user stories, the PO gives it to the team and says, I want you to do this, build this widget for me, build this thing for me. And the team says, okay, this is roughly the same size as this thing we did last month, and that took us 2 weeks to build. So we can roughly estimate, we can probably get this to you in 2 weeks. We've got 4 other things ahead of it in the backlog, so it'll be the 5th thing we get to, and you can start to use the data based on past experience to project how long it'll take. But that is one of the key differences between PMs and project managers and product owners, is you don't work on hard deadlines and milestones wherever you have to. You're not gonna try to project 2 years out, we're gonna have this delivered to you on January 3rd at 2 p.m., because that's never right.
It never happens, yeah. And that's how you come up with the WIP limit as well. You don't just like, I'm gonna make up a number. So you actually use past experience. Like in the past 2 weeks with this size for a 1, we were able to deliver 5. So that's why we have 5 here. Does that make sense? Cool. I will move on. You guys good? Awesome. Okay, so I just wanted to put this picture here because it's really funny. So the first is how the customer explained it, how the project leader understood it, and then different people are building different things. So I think this picture illustrates very well why a product owner is important, because the product owner is the middleman. I say middleman doesn't mean you have to be the bottleneck. It's the middleman to make the vision clear to both sides, the business, the analysts, the engineers, so in the end, you deliver roughly what the customer wants. So, yeah. Anyways, last thing, I thought you guys might be curious. Whenever I want to learn about a career, I want to look at what someone in this job actually does. So this is just one day. This is today, and other days look different. I have different ceremonies on other days. But today, at 8:30, I get there early. I look at emails, but you can get there at 9. Our daily stand-up. Daily stand-up is where all the engineers, I don't have to be there for the daily stand-up. It's where all the engineers get together. They talk about what they did yesterday and what they need, what they are going to work on today, what help they need, and who are going to pair. Pair is very important for engineers because that's how you become cross-functional. Because maybe I know how to use Spring Boot very well, but I don't know anything about Python, and he does. So we pair, we learn from each other. So, and then 9:45 to 10:45, today I had refinement. Refinement is where, like someone asked about stories, right? So where I had the stories, I filled out the criteria for stories. This is what I want. This is what this story is for. I have like 4 or 5 of them very nicely written, and then I get all the engineers together. We look at the stories. We make sure every engineer understands what that story means. They communicate with each other to understand the high-level strategy, and they work on that story. We modify that story as needed. If that story is too big, like you said, maybe it's too big, then we break it down to smaller stories. And then once you have refinement, the story are ready to work. They can work on it now. And then 11 a.m., I check my emails. Normally, I have a lot of emails, but Daryl over there normally has like 500 emails. I'm not kidding. So I saw your email box. You had like 864 emails today. All from you. And then I have lunch. I think it's really cool because in the past, I wanted to put that there because in the past, I used to work in customer service, where you have 30 minutes lunch break and at a specific time, but once you get into technology, it's a much easier life in the sense that you are getting paid to think. You're getting paid to work with people. You can go for lunch whenever you want, well, roughly whenever you want. If you have a meeting, you can go, right? And you can go to lunch, you can go out. So I just thought I would share that. That's something that means a lot to me. If you work in customer service, you probably understand. So afternoon time, it depends. Sometimes in the afternoon, I have all kinds of meetings. But most of the time, I spend my afternoon to strategize. I meet with the business side of people. I meet with my engineers if they have any blockers. Sometimes I need something from another team. Sometimes something's not happening in our team because someone else is not doing their job. So I need to interact with them. Scrum Master interact with them as well. So sometimes I play board games. Only one time.
What did you play?
Oh, wow, we played like a bunch of board games.
Dave's gonna apply now. We don't have a developer anymore. Thanks.
So I think that's all for me. Yep.
Right,
James.
so instead of James, I'm gonna have Daryl come on.
Oh, thank you.
Go for it.
We're still talking about product owners.
Okay,
It might be a better flow.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yuan, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yuan?
Yuan?
Yeah.
How long have you been a PTO apprentice for?
6 months, 5 months, 5-ish months.
I think it'll be 6 months towards the end of the year.
Oh yeah.
So you're probably closer to only like 4 months.
Really?
I think it's about 4 months.
How long did it take you to get comfortable with the role? And
I think for me personally, I adapt to things pretty quickly. First of all, they have snacks in every room. So I feel like it's very important to stress that, and you can just walk around and eat the snacks. Second of all, if there are snacks that you don't want, you can ask them to buy. Third of all, the snacks are free, so it took me like 2 months to adjust.
So Jan was like, she was also very well prepared before she came into it. So even as she was taking the class, she was like reading 2 or 3 books or something on the side. And was like asking a lot of questions about like, hey, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? So it's just like not waiting for people to give her information. I think that's why she like doing such a good job with it.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if it matters, but
And snacks. I said and snacks.
And snacks, yes. But my husband is like a software lead. He's been developing for like 10 years, so he works for a small startup. They have their own product owner, and I'm there like, even before this job, I'm there day in, day out, because they had snacks too. It's free. So I kind of like had a little background. I didn't do it personally, but I kind of get the idea. So maybe that helped a little bit. But I wouldn't imagine if you're just going in there, and I had a mentor too. That's my coach over there. So with the right help, with the right people, I wouldn't imagine it would take more than 3 or 4 months.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, yeah. So now we're gonna have Dale come up, and he's also a product owner. He's actually Yuan's boss, and so he knows a little bit more about like the career trajectory. And he's also interested, like you have a background in programming too, right? So you have the opportunity that you could have gone down the programming route, you could go down the product owner route, and you decided to go down this route. So that's another thing, since you guys are kind of in that same situation, he might be better suited to answer those questions.
Awesome, thank you. Well, before we begin, first of all, thank you for having me. If everyone can just smile real quick, because what I see in the room are the next leaders for product ownership, product management, and I want to be a part of it, so everyone smile. All right, now that I got you for the record. All jokes aside, thank you everyone. Daryl Eaton, I believe the official title Express Scripts has given me is Chief Technical Product Owner, basically meaning chief, you own everything and everyone is your boss and you better get everything done, and it's a blessing, but it can also be tough. I guess just 10 minutes about what I do. Wow. Has everyone, or I would recommend everyone for a good read is Inc.'s magazines by, an article by Jeff Harding, and it said if you want to be a good CEO, first be a good product owner or product manager. And hi Ari, how you doing? It's family night, so I have to bring the family. And I think that resonated really well. Good read. The art and science of being a product owner really boils down to just how you as yourselves want to be conveyed, not just as good business leaders, but also how do you go and fix and solve real world problems every single day. So I have the blessing to be a part of a team out of their digital account space. So everyone's heard of Express Scripts, sort of, kind of, right? So we have about 83 million lives that we serve. And of those 83 million lives, we have about roughly 14 million digital accounts. So everyone's heard of like Gmail, Google, right? So like when you log in, Google has an account. So think of an account like your digital replica on some server that now that server knows who you are as a person. So what my team and we manage are the different products and integrations and components that manages those 14 million digital accounts, right? And the business aspect of why we do what we do is because every time we provide great customer service, meaning you call us to fill a script or make sure that things are done correctly for your benefits or what have you, it's good, but it costs us money. Every time you call us is a $5 charge to our bottom line, right? And even on the flip side, right? Every time that we don't get somebody to use our mobile app, which everyone here now knows we have a mobile app, so please go download it and use it. Or if you don't come to our website, that's also another $15 to $20 spin, because those are different aspects of costs that we have to take on to meet not only contractual obligations, but to make sure we serve as safe and secure as prescriptions to you. So like, has everyone received like something in the mail saying, hey, this is your benefit? Or like right now we're in what we call season of open enrollment. So if you have any insurance benefits or what have you, you sign up for new ones, Medicare, Medicaid, different health provider networks, right? So those are all costs. We have to send emails out every time you go to say Walgreens, CVS, and get us scripts. We have to notify you. These are adjudication claims. All this stuff is going in. These are costs that are going out. So to Yuan's point, a lot of my stakeholders are operations, which is about a organization of about, I think, about 10,000 to 15,000 people, everything from our call center representatives to folks that are on the front lines making sure that the correct scripts get filled at our 5 warehouses, our fulfillment centers across the nation. I work closely with supply chains. Supply chains come up with the different tangible products that Express Scripts, I believe we just recently closed at about $1.2 billion in revenue last year. They're the team that go and develop products against our P&L. And I work closely with our sales and marketing component to always make sure that, hey, if you are, Medicare, Medicaid, veteran base, we make sure we sell you the correct scripts and send you the correct copyright versus, let's just say you are, a professional and you have bought into, say, Kaiser Permanente, which is out of our Southern California area, we'll send you certain communications. Those are different curated experiences. So sales and marketing handles that from both the member and the client side of the business. So I know, I see everyone's eyes going like, whoa, that's a lot. What's going on here, right? So to Yuan, if you don't mind pulling back up that whole cycle of the picture, I wanted to give kind of that, just that, you know, download of data of really what a product owner and a product manager does, right? We are the CEO of the product, but at the same time, our main job is to make sure that stakeholders get the value that they need delivered. When we miss different targets, it does equate to millions of dollars. If we miss certain targets, it means that someone might get the wrong scripts, right? And that's a life. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to make sure people are safe, right? So if you look here, one of the reasons why I chose to go down this path, so I've been in the product management, product owner space for about 6 or 7 years. Prior to Express Scripts, I was the product owner of Boeing's corporate analytics. So that serviced about 200,000 plus global employees and was responsible for the data, the HR supply chain and finance data warehouse to serve up all of these different metrics to go and run 25,000 different products that Boeing offered around the globe. So the reason why I chose to go down this path versus, say, exploring more of the software development is, one, I wanted to get closer and closer to the business. If anyone has any aspirations to really truly learn the business and some of the aches and pains, then I think learning first how technology works and how to apply technology as a key enabler equips you to now have tool sets that the business needs to materialize not just value, but cost-saving drivers in this digital age. So congratulate yourselves that you are even wanting to explore this, because there's very few of us. Yes, you guys are all now my product owners because I have a picture with you guys now, right? There's
Scrum Master.
And Scrum Master. No, I said all of us. I said all of us. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. There's very few of us that understand how to balance all this, right? So this picture, I think, sums it up pretty well. And if you really dive into the details there, that word vision, my job at the end of the day is to really listen, to sit back, listen, to evaluate, to have, I like to call, I use the word sapient, those sapient wisdom and the knowledge to really understand what all of those stick figures up there are really trying to go and achieve, right? Because here's the other thing, all those stick figures, they don't like talking to one another either, right? And then at the same time too, those stick figures are throwing a ton of different ideas. And my job to keep vision is really to say no. That's not a fun job to be in. Whereas this career path that I've chosen to take and been fairly blessed in it allows me to really partner closely with the dev teams to make sure that I'm only feeding them the high value, high impact work that on the output of this means that not only is the business being taken care of, not only are our customers being taken care of, but all of my dev and engineering teams can high five and say, you know what, I made an impact today. So it's a lot of responsibility, but I enjoy it, right? And I think if you're ever interested in really wanting to go on a career path where you walk out every day and know, wow, that was pretty intense, or you walk out sometimes and go, whoa, I don't know what just happened to my life, or you walk out some days and go, you know what, yeah, I can't wait to get back here tomorrow, then I would highly recommend becoming a product owner or a product manager. So I hope I fit the bill. Any questions? Sure. You first.
This is more of a high-level question. I mean, this sounds like an amazing job, an amazing opportunity. Are you guys like having difficulty filling these jobs from people just applying through the company or recruiting through universities? Like, why come to a place like LaunchCode where you're getting like maybe green, less experienced people?
Good question. So if I could kind of reverse the question a little bit, I think an interesting statistic that came out is that 63% of folks that are titled as product owners, I think it was either through Gartner or what have you, I was reading on LinkedIn, right, don't have a technical background. And what I interpret from that is not so much that we are struggling to fill the rankings. The challenges is finding folks that are balanced and have a broad thinking pattern, but understand that at the end of the day, to what you was saying, our job is to deliver. and still have those interpersonal relationship skills, have those skill sets to be able to tell a story, to be able to tell a story on no, to tell a story on why, to be able to quantify in the pipeline why things are being done, and are very process oriented to make sure at the end of the day, you take care of your people and you deliver results. And that big C word that's right in the center, communication. So if I can answer your question, I don't think that coming to LaunchCode less experience is a qualifier. I would actually see that as a critical advantage, because there's different aspects of life that everyone's coming from, right? No one says that you got to be an engineer to be a product owner, but you do need to have a vast way of being able to interpret, communicate, and to be able to understand what someone is trying to do, but then formulate it, bite-size it to deliver what they need. Does that help?
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Cool.
If I could add a little.
Stakeholders, is deal with launch code, exhibit 1 and 2. I'm looking at the diagram. What is that? It's saying something with this $8, $5 on the left side, and dealing with business schools, social tech, and cost of schedule. That was something they was talking about the students that are going to school and the teachers paying for certain things like taxes for like high school students, like transportation and in college, and then the numbers at 4 6. And I'm looking at this stockholder and dealing with Merrill Lynch and dealing with Hood and EPA, something I was reading a long time ago. What is the outcome of this about this EPA and housing everywhere else?
So I'm not sure if I understand your question, but with regards to the diagram, when we're talking about dollars,
right,
it's kind of, this is just more of a visual representation of how we're bite-sizing work. Right. So I'm not sure if I understand the EP.
Like a person, someone donated something for dealing with the stock of like 401k in Maryland, and dealing with somebody knowing about the EPA and stockholders' name and common name associated with other corporate business name, and dealing with the EPA and Hood housing that's everywhere in the United States, and you have this budget crisis or whatever.
Yeah.
And dealing with, it's like the program they have not for the kids. How is they going to be dealing with one type of budget and not budgeting about food service, but they actually want somebody to pay for like other people's other expenses that they not putting to it.
Yeah, so let me circle back to some other questions, but I think I want to understand yours a little bit, so maybe we can take that one offline. Any other questions?
What was the article you said was a good read in the beginning?
So if you Google Inc.com and you look up, it's by Jeff Harding, I believe that's right, H-A-R-D-N, or maybe Hadding. And it says the title is "Want to be a CEO? First be a good product manager." Great read, short read, but I think a lot of, I'm not gonna steal the thunder, but I gotta tell you because it's a very exciting article. Basically, it's referring to the fact that as a product owner, to what Yuan was saying, as a CEO, you may be the boss of everyone, quote unquote, but at the same time, you have to balance your understanding. You can't lean so much to say marketing and make everything about marketing, because if you look at a P&L, marketing is a cost driver, right? But you can't lean so much to finances and be, say, frugal, because you got to invest. You can't look at R&D, because R&D is normally 2.5% of companies' revenue stream, but that's again a cost driver. And you can't just look at what does the customer want. You got to balance all of these things to stay whole.
So can you compare the stress of being a manager and the stress of being a developer?
Now that's a good one. So I think both of them have the same stresses. So let me explain it from like a software and engineering standpoint. I'm sure you've experienced the times when you're trying to get something to compile, right? And it's that one semicolon that's buried in some type of class that you had done some inheritance on, and for crying out loud, the code is only giving you a warning, but when you compile it, it errors out and doesn't work. I think you've all dealt with that type of stress. And by the way, either you're in a schooling program or you're within a company and you have a deadline to meet. All right, I know I'm not the only one that's dealt with that stress, right? So take that stress and look at it from a product owner standpoint. So I do have hard deadlines or milestones that my stakeholders need to meet. So for instance, right now we are in the end of the year, we're in open enrollment, and we go in what we call a freeze. Hi Jeremiah, hi. We go into a freeze situation. So what that means is that, guess what? I can't get anything into production or delivered. I can't get anything into production or delivered by December 3rd. That means that all my products, all of the delivery, ceases to exist until the end of until January. So what does that mean? That means my dev teams have to go work on something else. That means my stakeholders who are trying to materialize certain dollars can't get stuff out by the end of this year. And oh, and by the way, from a fiscal standpoint, ESI closes its books December, I think, 23rd. So that's the type of stress. Like, how do you balance, how do I say which work package gets out first, and how do I keep VPs happy? So that's the two different stresses that we deal with. So I think it's all the same. I think it's just people versus making computers work. That's the stress load.
Can you give an example of how, in your current role, being a programmer really helped you in a way that had you not had that knowledge,
Sure.
you would know to take the extra step,
Sure.
or to ask the extra ask, or
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and I'll answer it probably in the most unconventional manner.
Okay.
Critical thinking. The fact that I understand the difference between a class structure, SAS, APIs, versus routines, Jenkins build pipes has no relevance on delivering product, but critical thinking skills. Being able to empower my engineers when they say, this is not gonna work, stop, all right? And being able to convey that story back to stakeholders, not as, hey, guess what, the Jenkins pipe doesn't work because we have a build pack that doesn't work because Cloud Foundry and Pivotal gave us this. Stakeholders don't care, right? But if I can convey a message to them and say, hey, guess what? The building block to get this product out the door with limited to low risk is broken. And if we invest the time now to fix it, we can accelerate forward. They're willing to invest in that. So it's just those critical thinking skills.
So I want to add to what Daryl said. So when I first applied for this, I feel like you said, we're green, right? Like, why would they want us? But that's, like Daryl said, that's not the right way to think about it. The right way is, a lot of the product owners that are out there nowadays, they don't have a T, they don't have a technical background. And in order to be a good product owner, you have to speak the language, the two languages. I'll give you an example. My friend, he works for a company, a small company, and they need to purchase a software that will integrate with the website that will work with the website that client is having. So my friend, as a software developer, she told the product owner who doesn't have a technical background to make sure that the software can work with APIs, can make API calls. Now, like, if you don't have technical background, then you don't know what that means. She went ahead and bought one that doesn't work that way, and that's $15,000 just down the drain because you can't return software. So, and if you want to convey ideas to your developers, you kind of have to speak their language, and when they speak their language, you kind of have to understand what they're saying. So.
Yep, I totally agree. Let me take one more question because we want to get James up here. Yes, sir.
So what are some of the tools that you equip yourself for managing expectations, right? Because I've been in different avenues, and managing expectations is usually the most difficult thing to
It sucks.
I mean, that's
It hurts.
of everything.
Yep.
Managing those expectations.
And by no means am I making joke of that. I've one reason why I was late today, managing expectations, right, from a company standpoint. Tools. I don't know if I can.
Tools or tactics?
Okay, I'll give you tactics. I don't know if I can give you a prescribed list of tools because I think the art behind what we do is really, to Yuan's point, knowing how to speak the language, right? So I'll give a really quick, funny story. I had the privilege of going out to Bangalore, India, a couple of times to stand up Boeing's office out there. I mean, we had about 100 data scientists and engineers that we were standing up, right? So now let's all, I'm sure everyone can nod real quick. I am African American, right? And I think everyone knows that. And if we focus in on the American part, right? There are different culture aspects that I have that if I go into my Indian counterparts don't. So I'm gonna give my nodding yes story, right? So a lot of my Indian counterparts, they're good friends of mine, when they get excited or they're saying, yes, I understand what you're saying, they will shake their head and have different cultural norms that me as an American have no understanding of what's going on, right? So imagine me sitting there, right? Hey guys, we're gonna do this, I'm so excited. High five, do you understand we're doing this? And they're like, yes, Daryl, I understand. So to me, I'm interpreting no, right? So the tactic I had to use real time was first understanding, hey, you know what? Over communicate. Hey, what does that mean? It's interesting to me. I don't know what that means, but can you tell me? And someone had to tell me, no, that means yes in this language, right? That means like when they use their hands and go this way, that is actually a sign of us going high five, where you and me as a brother, like, you have a chest bump, how you doing, right? Those are different things that we have to use tactic-wise, is that when we don't understand something, over-communicate. It almost sounds like we go back to elementary school, but we have to over-communicate. The other tactic that I would use is to use the scientific method, right? To really go and break things down. If indeed you get presented with a problem that you have no idea what's going on, or you're presented with a challenge, start with a hypothesis. Hey, this is what I understand. This is how I'm thinking about fixing it. This are the 4 or 5 different options that I want to lean on the table to go and do it. To be honest with you, probably all your options are going to be wrong. It's okay. That's the beauties of experimentation. But by now working with your stakeholders and managing expectations, say, hey, this is how I see it. These are the 5 options, or 1 option, or 3 options I see. What do you see in it? Because what they'll end up doing is giving you more information for you then to be able to dial in on what the actual need is. And in closing, what I'll add too is be comfortable being uncomfortable. I can't count the situations. In fact, I'm probably in 5 situations right now. You know, I got a call at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon that completely derailed a lot of things that, you know, were in place. But you know what? Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Understand you have high emotional intelligence. If you get upset at certain things, take a walk, because it's really not that big of a deal. We're all dealing with kind of first world problems here, right? 2, if you know yourself, you'll also know what are your triggers, right? So if you know your triggers, then you can over communicate what trigger words you're saying and what you need. And then 2, be comfortable just asking questions. Those are my 3 tactics. All right? Cool.
All right. So, you guys getting a lot of information? Doing pretty good? All right.
Excuse me, before you get started looking at that picture, I just remember back in the Federal Trade Commission talking about the stakeholders. I was going through a lawsuit, and yes, I am part of, you know, I'm going to take my stuff.
The stockholders of Express Scripts?
Yes, they was, Express Scripts 2000 was one to a lawsuit, and I was just looking at this 1699 I was filing. My wife didn't go to court. They always talking about, did nobody advertise and deal with this identity theft, going no filing, dealing with occupation, and I'm dealing with here, down at cyber security business solution, and stuff that like this stuff, the diagram that you got up. They was talking about the Express Script, a girl writing a book about a lung transplant, about documented finding medication in a young girl. And it was an older woman supposed to be saving her life with a kidney transplant, giving her her kidney. But I was just noticing that gentleman down in Cedar, he said 5.
So let's.
Can we talk about this afterwards? You and I can meet and we'll talk about it. I would prefer to make sure that we answer everybody else's questions. If you just hang out, I'll come talk. All right. Hey, we can talk about it afterwards. If you want to continue to talk about it, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. And so, great information so far. Now we got the final, the final appetizer here. So I have James. He's going to tell you a little bit more about what a Scrum Master does. And my hope is that, you know, after we have this conversation, you guys will have a pretty good, clear differentiator between Scrum Master, Product Owner, kind of see yourself in these different roles and ask good follow-up questions.
Cool. All right, so just to time box myself, no more than an hour and a half, right?
I was thinking 2.
We're gonna keep it lean. I was gonna.
We have to be done by 9 o'clock.
All right, 10:30. Got it. So Like Ryan said, my name is James Nippert. I am a senior Scrum Master working at Express Scripts currently. I work for an awesome consulting company called Three Bridge. They're pretty great here in the St. Louis area. Real quick, who's heard of a Scrum Master before? Who's worked with a Scrum Master before? One. How'd you feel about that?
It's a little...
Just totally honest right now. Good, bad?
Very structured.
Structured,
Yeah.
okay. What was that like? Let's limit the conversation to one person at a time. Thank you. Sorry.
What was it like? It's intense.
Good
Yeah,
intense.
yeah, it was good. I mean, it was it went well.
Okay,
It was a
awesome.
successful project.
So this was a development team?
Yeah.
I'm assuming? Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to start throwing out words here as we go. If I say Agile, does everyone know what I'm talking about? Who has a strong understanding of Agile? How about Scrum? Or Kanban?
Oh, yes.
Can anyone tell me the difference between Scrum and Kanban?
Well, Kanban is boring.
Okay.
Kanban is your prioritization, right, of the different things that, what you have to do, what you've done, what you're planning on doing eventually. Whereas the Scrum is the actual discussion. You've kind of decided, maybe you're prioritizing the to-dos specifically.
Okay. So I'm hearing lots of partially correct answers. So we'll get into some of that. That's more into the extended learning of it. Probably won't get into that. I just want to make sure that I'm using words that that no one's gonna follow along to what I'm saying. So I have been a Scrum Master for about 3 years now. As I said, currently working at Express Scripts, and we're gonna kind of talk about how I got there. But first, we're just gonna talk about what is a Scrum Master. Since only one person's worked with one, this is pretty exciting. Scrum Masters suck. No, I'm kidding. Scrum Masters are, this is the buzzword in the industry, you hear it all the time, servant leaders. I've heard that so many times, I cringe at it sometimes, but it is absolutely true. And there's a big difference between being a manager, right, of a team and saying, you go do this thing, go code this user story, versus being a servant leader, which is empowering and enabling people to be their own boss or as close to it as possible. So there's like 3 main categories of things that a Scrum Master does under their responsibilities of the day-to-day delivery of the product and product team that they're working with. So first one, probably the biggest one, is removing blockers for developers. Blockers are impediments like, I'm waiting on this firewall rule to be put in place so that I can connect my VDI to the cloud. And I say, as a Scrum Master, okay, I'm gonna go fix that for you. And I'm gonna go yell at the firewall team until they get done whatever you need to do. My developer tells me something that's wrong, I'm gonna make it my life's mission to clear that impediment for them, whether that's I gotta go yell at a VP or beg politely from a VP, whatever it may be, or if there's another team that we're dependent on to deploy our code at the same time as them. I'm gonna be working with that team and facilitating that. There's 1,000 different examples of removing blockers. It's unique for every team. And on that note, the Scrum Master is a unique job to every single team. So when I'm talking about my experience tonight, that is Jimmy's experience. That is not tried and true. Every Scrum Master does the exact same thing in a day. I work with 2 teams currently. They're very different teams. They have very different needs. So that's part of being a servant leader, is being whatever the team needs you to be. You're the glue that holds the team together and enables awesome people to live out the full extent of their awesomeness. So if you leave tonight saying, well, that guy said Scrum Masters have to do this, that's what I have to do. And please understand, this is gonna change on a day-to-day basis, and definitely a company-to-company basis. Second is leading the Scrum ceremonies. So as we were talking a little bit, Agile is essentially a set of ideals of what to care about more and what to care about less when it comes to software development. Scrum and Kanban are ways to implement those ideals. They are prescriptive frameworks, and that can get where it gets a little intense sometimes. Structured, yeah, they're structures of how to implement and live out those ideals. So Scrum, you've got a time box for how to get your work done. It's usually, we're gonna commit to these 12 user stories, these 12 chunks of work, and get them done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever the team wants that time box to be. Kanban is more priority driven. It's a constant stream you're delivering all the time. So Kanban is a pull method, and Scrum is a little bit more of a predictive commitment method. The team's doing work either way, but there are slight differences to it. However, most companies use the same ceremonies that come from the Scrum handbook. That's why we're called Scrum Masters, because most of this originally comes from Scrum. The word Kanban, as you said, is board. Kanban just means board. It's visual. That's a Japanese word for visual. But when we talk about Scrum ceremonies, there's let's say 5 ceremonies that most companies follow, and they're on a pretty regular pattern. So a couple people have mentioned the daily stand-up. Every day, the development team, the product owner, Scrum Master, they get together, and everyone answers the same 3 questions. What did I accomplish yesterday? What am I accomplishing today? And what are my current roadblocks? So I'm listening to that the entire time and making sure the team is working on its highest priorities or its commitments. And then I'm listening for those roadblocks. And sometimes developers are talking about what they're going to do in the day. They don't even know that they're describing a roadblock. I have to pick up on that and say, you're saying that you got to work with John on this team over here, and he's not responding, but is that a roadblock? And they're like, oh yeah, I guess it is. All right, cool, let's go talk to John. So that's the main and one of the most important Scrum ceremonies is that daily check-in with the team. We were talking about project managers a little bit before. Try to get away from like the status emails and status calls and the yellow and green and red light stuff. That daily stand-up is the team on track to deliver what it's committed to. Retrospectives are my favorite Scrum ceremony. They're where you take the last time box, usually like about 2 weeks or maybe a month, somewhere in there, and you talk about what happened. That's your chance to lead into this third point, which is continuous process improvements. So we might sit down as a team and say, okay, we delivered this thing. How'd that delivery go? What was great about it? What sucked about it? What can we do better next time? And we pull that information out of the team and find experiments that we can run, stuff to improve. So you say, we're going to change the format of our stand-ups a little bit, or we're going to try interacting with this team in a different way over the next 2 weeks. And we're going to measure it, and we're going to find out if it worked. If it works, cool, we're going to keep it. If not, we're going to throw it out, and we're going to try something else. And you do that forever. Continuous improvement is every day looking for chances to improve. So the retrospective is a great ceremony to do that, but there's chances all throughout the day just interacting with the team and listening to the team. The other ceremonies, we can get into more detail on those later if anyone wants. They get less exciting the deeper you go down, but that's basically it. So far, questions? Okay, we're going to keep rolling. So what does a Scrum Master do? Again, this is Jimmy's version of a Scrum Master. There's about 1 trillion things that a Scrum Master might do. When I made this slide, it was what I had done that day so far. So Scrum Master, again, think about servant leader. It's whatever the team needs. Top of the circle is Agile Coach. This is a full-time job to a lot of people, but it's understanding the Agile principles, understanding the fundamentals, and how to put those into practice on a team on a daily basis, and helping the team do that. Now, a difficult part of being a Scrum Master, this is one of the main make or break things, is you don't have any direct control over this team. So we're all used to the command structure, right? The hierarchy, the chain of command. You're over here. These people don't report to you, you don't sign their paychecks, you can only suggest and influence. So that's where it starts to get a little more into the soft skills, and this is what sets Scrum Masters apart from a lot of other roles, where you've got to be able to work with different kinds of people, like Daryl was talking about. I got 2 developers on the same team who I couldn't approach in more different ways, just to both make sure that they are working together well. So it's understanding your people, establishing a relationship with those people, getting them to trust you, and helping them through their day-to-day lives. Agile Coach is a great example of that, where if you see a team and they're not following an Agile practice, like some teams might say, we don't really think the daily stand-up's worth it. And being an Agile Coach might be, okay, so nothing gets delivered on time and 2 people are working on the same chunk of work, on the same chunk of code, and they didn't even realize it because they don't talk to each other. Maybe we should try that daily stand-up thing. That's a very simple, actual conversation I've had to have before with my team. A lot of different ways you can put that in. Team builder, very similar. You got to be with the team. You got to interact with the team. You call yourself the morale and recreation officer. It's teams that like each other, that trust each other, that have good levels of collaboration are probably going to deliver more with higher quality than teams that don't. So that's something on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes that means making yourself the enemy. Sometimes it's rallying the team together. That's one of those soft skill ones. Whip defender. We talked about whip a little bit before, where if you're in Kanban, you have a whip limit. So let's say the whip limit's 5. We got 5 things that we're working on right now. And then Yuan comes to me and she's like, James, we found out that's a really cool new thing. We got to do it right now. And I'm going to say, well, Yuan, we have 5 things in progress already. We've already committed to these things, so we're going to wait on this new thing. Or if you really want this thing, the team's going to decide that we're going to stop working on something else, and we're going to not deliver that. We're going to break that promise, and we're going to make that as painful as possible to make sure that you recognize what you're doing to our work in progress. Because there's nothing that product organization